Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Come on. Testing, testing. Come on, come on. Let's hear you, let's hear you. Okay, I hear myself. Perfect. Bring tech to this. Yes, yes, I know bitrate is slow. After not doing this for so long, you forget all the technical difficulties I run into running this on a laptop. Well, it's been quite a while. But hello, everyone. Welcome back to my stream. Let's see if we can turn that down. Let's go this way first. There we go. A little more chill for the beginning. Welcome back. This is a stream. And as the title says, might be the final one. I'll address the elephant in the room first. I'll address that little final with the question mark first. Basically, if it hasn't been obvious from my lack of consistent streams, I've started to lose interest, lose motivation to keep going with it. So, I figured today is the 1 year to the day anniversary of my first ever stream. So why not go out with a bang? We started on YouTube, we're ending on YouTube. We started today, we're ending today. We started with me just talking, and so we're ending today with just talking. I've had a couple of things saved up for stream topics, and so I decided I'm just going to throw them all into this one stream, just all at once. Check audio one last time. Audio looks good. All right. So let's get into it. As I said, we're doing a whole bunch of different topics that are not listed because there's too many. So this will be a bit of an extended stream. So if you're seeing this live, it might take a while, probably more than the regular 2 hours, maybe three. But if you're seeing a recording, obviously you know how long it is. Take your pick. Okay, talked about that. Oh, okay, so my most recent upload was... I really have to stop milking that topic, but the trolley problem, going back to it, if you haven't checked it out, it's basically like a choose-your-own-adventure style of addressing the trolley problem. But you get to choose your decision, and then whatever decision you decide to pick, there is another one that follows. So there's a total of 4 different outcomes, 4 different endings you could get. So go ahead, if you want, check it out, take your pick, and let me know if it made you smile, made you laugh, or at least made you think. A little differently than what you maybe normally would have thought. Okay, I mentioned that. Look at that. 2 out of our, 12 topics done right there. Okay, now we're just going to launch into the topic. So the topic I'm going to start with is a little talk about money. So let me pose a situation to you. Let's say that you're walking along a road, and this person comes up to you and says, "Hey, you have something that I want. I have something that you want. Let's trade." And And so you look at what he has to offer, you look at what he wants from you, and you say, they seem about the same, equal, in value to one another. Sure. So you trade, and then you part ways. You both completed half of your trade. Your half of giving your thing away, and his half of giving his thing away. The two halves come together, the trade is complete. Now let's reset that scenario to a different situation. You're walking down the street, and this guy comes up to you, and he says, you have something that I want. I have something that you want. Let's trade. And so you look at what you have that he's asking for, and you understand how important it is to you. And then you look at what he's offering you, and you hesitate. What he's offering doesn't seem to be as valuable or as important to him or to you as what he's asking you to give away. So you say, this trade seems a bit unfair. I'm going to have to pass. And he says, no, wait, hold on. What about all this other stuff that I have? Take a look. And you examine all of his wares, everything he has to offer, and you're still saying, no, none of that is really the same amount of importance to me in my life as what I'm being asked to give away. And so he says, well, okay, I really want what you have, so I'll make you a deal. And he looks down and he grabs 3 little pebbles, 3 little stones from the ground, dusts them off, shines them up, and says, let's say that these 3 pebbles represent, they symbolize the amount of importance that your object has. Let's agree that your object has 3 stones worth of importance to me and to you. So, you give me your object, and I will give you these 3 stones in exchange. So these stones will represent 1/2 of this trade that is not yet completed, a half of a trade that you are owed. And so, you go along with it. You give up your object, and he gives you those 3 stones. Now those 3 stones together represent a half of a trade that you have not yet fulfilled. And the 3, quantity 3, represents the value of that trade that you are owed. Now it doesn't matter what stones they are. You could take one of those 3, drop them on the ground, pick up another one, dust it off, replace it. Nothing's changed. It's still 1, 2, 3 stones. The actual stones themselves hold no value or importance on their own. It's what they represent. It's what they symbolize that's important. So you go along and you find a second trader. And you see something that he has that is about the same value as what you gave up. The same value as what those 3 stones represent. So you go and you say, hey, I want what you have. And I have these 3 stones, which represent the same value of what I'm asking from you. Let us trade. And so he says, okay, so you now take the object from him, and you give him those same 3 stones. So now from your perspective, with the first trader, you gave up your object. You fulfilled your first half of that trade. And with the second trader, you took his object. So now you completed the second half of that trade. You gave, and then you took. Your trade, in terms of value, in terms of importance, is complete. But now that second trader has given up half of his trade, and he got these 3 stones that represent that incompleted second half of a trade. And so now, he continues, and he finds someone else to exchange and trade, and so on and so forth, and this carries on and on. If you replace the stones with money, that's basically a metaphor for what actually happens. Now here's the thing that I'm not really sure if it's happening, but it's kind of a little perspective, a little theory. It seems in some circles, in some instances, that the stones, which the individual stone, like I said, doesn't matter. You can throw one away, pick one back up from the road, value is unchanged, and the actual stones, the actual rocks, are not important as to what color they are, what shape, what coarseness. The stone itself is just a symbol. It itself is essentially meaningless. But it seems that by using the stones as a symbol to represent importance, they have inherited that importance on their own. So now the stones, instead of symbolizing a certain value, they become a certain value. So now people focus on collecting as many stones as they can. Metaphorically, they're collecting as much money as they can simply because they want to have a lot of money. Now, I'm not trying to argue that stones, therefore money, is unimportant. It's how trades happen in the world. The thing that the stones and the money allows you to do is, in my first example, you did 2 halves of the trade then and there. You gave up your thing, you took his thing, the trade was complete. The 2 halves happened at the same place at the same time. But in the second scenario, that trader did not have anything to equate to the value of what you were giving up. So by all means, the trade should not have happened. It would not have been fair, no matter how it would have turned out. But by using the stones, you were able to delay the second half of that trade to a place and a time and a customer that could supply the equal second half of that trade. So the value, the use of the stones gives you the ability to delay the second half of your trades to a different place, a different time. Allows you to mix and match. So now if you look at, you're just collecting all these stones, well, every one of those stones represents a half of a trade that you have not cashed in on. A half of a trade where you've given up something and you have not received anything in return. Each stone represents something that you are owed, something that you are missing. So when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense to just accumulate stones for the sake of accumulating stones. You're just accumulating IOUs, which by themselves are meaningless if they're never fulfilled. It's just a funny little thought experiment that I had. Now, whether it's accurate or financially damaging, it's just a fun theory, just fun talking about it. This is not legal or financial advice in any respect, but just thinking about it. You're accumulating rocks, and each one represents a half of a trade you have not finished. So it doesn't make sense to just collect rocks for the sake of collecting rocks. Now, if later on you're going to gather a couple rocks here, a couple rocks there, and then trade them in for something that is worth many, many, many rocks, that makes sense. A large investment of symbolized and represented value. But to hold on to the rocks because you think the rocks themselves have value defeats the whole purpose of why the rocks were introduced in the first place. They were introduced to allow you to delay the second half of your trade, but the rocks themselves started with no meaning. To give them meaning defeats the reason why they came about. Sometimes they say it's even more important than what it represents. They start to build value. I don't really know where I'm going with this. There's not really a point. I just thought it'd be fun to think about, because that's what we do here. We philosophize. We philosophize. Yeah, that's the word. So yeah, that's my take on the whole money gains value rather than only represents value kind of thing. That is a little mini theory I had floating around my head. I will be right back. One moment, please. Okay, that looks good. I have to fix my avatar a little bit. So that's one down. And we're already 30 minutes in. And that's not even the big one. That was a shorter one. Okay, so now this next one. Next little mini theory. I shouldn't call it a theory. I should call it a little philosophizing topic. This next one is about people. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that there is a difference between tools and the people that use tools. I would make the argument that in most cases, tools by themselves are not inherently good or evil, but the people who use them can be. So there is no tool that by its very nature is bad or good. You can use the instance like a back scratcher. A back scratcher can be used to scratch your back, which is usually a good thing. It could also be used to squash insects, which is a bad thing for those insects. But the back scratcher is not to blame. It's the person using the back scratcher that controls it, that uses it. So a tool, whether it's a firearm or a kitchen knife or a golf club or a plastic ruler or a television or a painting frame or a bed sheet, the tool itself is not inherently good or evil. It's how it's used. And I would say that extends to non-physical tools. Things like strategies and techniques and mindsets. And so what I'm going to discuss today is something that I've learned in my time in the working world. A strategy for working with people. And I would consider this strategy a tool that is not inherently good or bad, but can be used for good or evil, depending on the person, but not the fault of the tool. So taking that into consideration, I'm going to describe this tool and know that it should only really be used as a good thing. But then we start getting into preachy stuff, so I'm just going to describe it, and then you take it for what it is. So, I'm going to start by saying the main idea. Human beings are more likely to critique than to create. They are more likely, more willing to pass judgment upon something rather than create something that will then be judged by others. A clear example for this would be cooking food. Would you rather create food to be judged by someone else, or judge someone else's food that they have created for you? Would you rather cook a meal for someone and have them judge it, or would you go out to a restaurant and have a chef cook a meal for you? There are some people who enjoy cooking, but that's not really part of this equation. The part I'm talking about is the emotional aspect of presenting yourself for judgment or judging others who have presented themselves for judgment. Which position would you most likely be willing to be willing to participate in? The food thing was really just to illustrate the example, but I'm going to launch into a real-world scenario that actually happens. If you're trying to answer a difficult question that you don't have the answer to, and so you find all the people who know what they're talking about, you put them all into a single room, and you present the one question to all of them, and they talk about it, and they talk about it, and they talk about it, they discuss it, they go back and forth, and now it's time to end the discussion. So, if you sit there wishing for an answer to the question, and you expect one of them to give their professional opinion and provide you with an answer, then and there, they are some percentage likely to do it, willing to do it. Now, we're not considering the whole aspect of it's your job, you are paid to do this, you must do this. We're not considering that. Considering like from a purely human perspective. If you're asking them to come up with an answer to your question, they are somewhat likely to do it, because whatever they say will be judged by everyone else, all the other experts in the room, and they will be the one who is having judgment passed upon them. However, if you flip it around, and you, as in this example, the one with the least subject knowledge in the room, come up with an answer to that question yourself, and then you ask them to say, does this work? Is this good? Is this bad? What does it need? What does it have too much of? They are far more likely to engage with it, to participate in the discussion, and to help you out, because they are no longer creating an answer themselves, they are critiquing an answer someone else has given. It's how you get people to engage. Now, like I said, this is a tool. Some might call it manipulation. Some might call it simply how you work with people. But it is a tool, and I'm illustrating how I've used it to be productive and to no detriment to the people involved. Let's go to a different example. Gift ideas. If you're working with a bunch of people and you're trying to get a gift for someone, let's say it's a birthday for a mutual friend, or it's a Mother's Day or Father's Day with your siblings, or some other celebration, Christmas or Easter, or what have you. And it's you and a bunch of other people have to come up with an idea for a gift for this person. So if you start the conversation and say, okay, what should we give this person? And you ask them to respond with their ideas. Well, now that requires them to come up with ideas themselves. It requires them to create ideas. Some of them might be more than willing, more than happy to do so. Sometimes maybe not. But if you say, here's some ideas, what do you think? they're much more willing to respond to that at all, let alone actually give a relevant opinion. So if you present gift ideas, ask them to pass judgment upon them, rather than ask them to provide the ideas in the first place, they're much more willing and much more likely to respond, to engage in the conversation, to participate in the effort. Let's even go with asking someone out. The process of asking someone out places you in a position to be judged. You are creating your question, creating your argument, your case. Your case of why you are asking this person, and your question of whether they will or not. Placing the other person in a position to judge what you have said and critique your arguments and pass a final judgment as yes or no. But if you're waiting for them to ask you out, you're waiting for them to create so that you can critique. Which to me explains why people are much more comfortable being asked than asking. Now this all traces back to what I would say is an aspect of human nature. Maybe it's just in our nature to be more willing to participate in critiquing rather than to create something to be critiqued. Is this laziness? I would say that in most cases it is easier to pass judgment upon something than to create it yourself. Or is it simply the fear of rejection? When you are critiquing something, you are doing the rejecting. When you create something for judgment, it inherently has a risk of being rejected, which is a very common fear. So is it fear of rejection that gives you hesitation to engage? And when that fear, that risk is not there, because you're the one doing the judging, you're more willing to step into that situation and engage, because now it's someone else who is risking rejection from you. One other instance where I would say this applies is social events. Let's say you want to catch dinner, or go to a movie, or visit a museum with some friends. And now it comes to the point where you say, hey, would you want to do this one day? And they say, yeah, let's do this. I'd love to do that. But expressing interest is where the conversation stops. And you're like, oh yeah, I'd love to join up. Just let me know when. Well, yeah, we'll find a time. Yeah, we'll be in touch. Just sometime. We'll talk about details later. Back and forth, going in circles, but no one is actually making the invitation. No one's actually creating the scheduled event. No one's gonna. So if you become that person, if you create the time, the place, the event, and you don't ask them to create it, but you ask them, here's what I've created, this moment that we can share. And now I'm asking you to pass judgment on whether you'd like to be a part of it or not. I would say they're far more likely to respond. Whether they'll respond yes or no is not really what I'm arguing. I'm saying, will they respond at all? I'd say yeah, because now they're not required to create anything. They're simply passing judgment on something someone else, you, have created. So that is a tool And I've used that to create social moments with friends of mine. We talk about going out and catching dinner or seeing something. But after a couple weeks of nothing actually being planned, I realized that they're probably not going to step up and be the ones to plan it. So if I take that step, let's see what happens. And so I took that step with one of them. And then we were sitting at dinner, and we started talking about it, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm horrible at actually setting these up, but I'm always willing to join in. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're more than willing to pass judgment, even if it's affirmative judgment, on an invite rather than making the invite yourself. More likely to critique than to create. More likely to pass judgment than make something of your own to be judged. So next time you're with a group of people and you want to hang out, but you're always just kind of dodging the question of when, where, what time, what location, what will you be doing, have the 20 seconds of courage it takes to make the invite, to do the actual inviting of the person. Hey, I'm thinking we go here, try this out on this day. What do you say? You're creating the invite. But more than that, you're asking them to critique, to judge your invite as a yes or a no. You're much more likely to get things moving if you do that. But if you always wait, you might be stuck waiting forever, because the other person might be also waiting for you. Whew, that was something. That, I think, is a tool that consistently has worked in my favor. Is it manipulating people? Could be seen like that. Is that inherently evil? I would say it's a tool. The tool itself is not evil. It depends on how you use it. Keep hydrated. Drink your water. All right. The next topic is the bulk of what I think this stream is going to be. So, I'm going to... Let's take a small 5-minute break. I'm going to get some more water. And then we'll launch into the big topic. And after that, we'll probably have another break. And then we'll do some closing comments, some updates, and some of my thoughts on the past year and all that stuff. And that'll be the end. So we're 45 minutes in, 50 minutes in. So about 5 minutes from now, we'll regroup. More water time, yay! Alright, let's see, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let's hope the audio is back to normal. Testing the audio. Come on, catch up. Ketchup and mustard. And perfect. There we go. Okay, we're good. We are good. We are back. This is a nice ambience. You know, thinking of this as the last stream, I'm just watching the background and the stars flying by, and I just remember what it was like building that animation, just designing the stars, getting the particles to fly off of them as they spin by. All of that. I remember it. Took a lot of work. I think I've improved a lot since then, too. Alright. Next topic. A big one. This one is... I'm not sure how much I can say without being copyrighted, but I'm going to say Pokemon. We're going to talk about a little something that is dear to my heart and something that I take probably a little more seriously than I should. And that is a suggestion of if you needed one type of Pokemon. Now, I'm going to preface this saying there's plenty of people who play Pokemon competitively, many people who've done theories on it, far more qualified to talk about this than I am, but I'm just going to put my 2 cents in case anyone wants to know. But if someone wanted some sort of versatile single Pokemon that was essentially the Swiss Army knife of their team, what one Pokemon can do the most with the least? Because you know that's one of my things I like. The best can do the most with the least. So what one Pokemon can handle the most opponents by themselves. But to introduce that, I'm going to introduce a little more basic level. Pokemon typings. Pokemon types. Now for those who are unfamiliar, this should be a very good crash course. So, typings. Pokemon types. There are a grand total of 18 right now. And each type represents what started with the elemental type, but really the elemental type of that Pokemon. And they can have 1 or 2 types at a single time. There are a couple exceptions, but speaking generally from now on, there are no Pokemon with 0 types, and there are no Pokemon with 3 or more types at any given time. Let's see. Okay, yeah, there's 18 types. So I'm just going to list them off now, and the order in which I list them off has importance, and I can explain that afterwards. So the typings are normal, grass, fire, water, electric, ground, rock, fighting, flying, bug, ice, ghost, poison, psychic, dragon, dark, steel, fairy. Those are the 18 types of Pokemon. Now here's why they are what they are. I started with normal, because normal is probably the least interesting of the 18. So I started with normal. Why not? And then I quickly realized that dividing them up into groups to memorize them would be better than just memorizing a straight list of 18. But memorizing them in chunks is a demonstrated effective way of memorizing. So I split them into chunks. You heard those chunks when I was speaking them, chunks of 5 at a time. And then the other 3 are just at the end. So, normal. What are the other 4? Well, in every Pokemon game, you're presented with a choice of 3 Pokemon to start with. And in every game, they are one of them a grass type, one of them a fire type, and one of them a water type. So those 3 types, grass, fire, water, represent the starting choice of almost every Pokemon game you have. So I put them right after in the beginning as well. So normal, grass, fire, water. The exception, which was part of my childhood, was Pokemon Yellow and the TV show, where you did not start with a grass, fire, or water type. You started with Pikachu, the mascot of Pokemon, which is electric type. So the first chunk of 5 represents the starters, grass, fire, water, or Pikachu, electric, and starts off with normal. So that starts the first 5. Normal, grass, fire, water, electric. The second set of 5 have special meaning. The second half of that meaning we'll get to later. But the first half, ground and rock, they're similar, kind of go together, ground and rock. Fighting, flying, they sound similar when you say them, so I put them together. And then I put bug in there, just because, and you'll see why in a minute. But ground, rock, fighting, flying, bug. So that's 10, right there. Now, in the history of the games, you started with 15 types. And in the second generation, you added 2 more, dark and steel. And in later games, you added the 18th, fairy. Well, in my chunks of 5, 5, 5, that gives you 15, the other 18 are 3. So why not make those last 3 the most recent 3 that were added? So that's why it's those first 10, the last bit of 5, and then we end with dark steel, they were added first, and fairy, added last. So now we just have 5 types left, and we have 5 spaces, 1 chunk of 5 left. How do we order them? Well, I ended the 2 with the 2 traditionally most powerful typings before Dark Steel and Fairy were added, and those were Psychic and Dragon. Psychic was powerful because it usually came with very powerful Pokemon with very powerful attacks. It was the type to have to be powerful in the very first generation. But then there was also Dragon. Dragon was also very powerful Pokemon with very powerful attacks. So dragons and psychics were the kings of typings back in the day. So I said Psychic and Dragon as the last 2 in that chunk of 5. So what do we have so far? We have normal, grass, fire, water, electric, first 5. Ground, rock, fighting, flying, bug, second 5. Something, 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 psychic, dragon, third set of 5. Dark, steel, fairy, final set of 3. What 3 types are left? Ice, ghost, poison. What order do I put them in that first 3 slots of that third set of 5? I don't really have a set order. I just say them in whatever order I happen to remember them. It doesn't really matter. I have the basic structure down. First set of 5 is starters. Second set of 5, the 2 that sound similar, the 2 that are similar, and then bug thrown in. The third set of 5 ends with the strongest 2. The first 3 are whatever is left, and then the last 3 are the newly added ones. So that's the same order in which I remember them every single time I need to recite them. Normal, grass, fire, water, electric. Ground, rock, fighting, flying, bug. Ice, ghost, poison, psychic, dragon. Dark, steel, fairy. Those are all 18 types. Now, how the types interact with one another is a system of checks and balances. Pokemon have types. The Pokemon themselves have typings. But each attack that they have also is given a type. And a Pokemon type of attack is not limited to the type that the Pokemon themselves are. For instance, Pikachu is an electric type, That does not mean that Pikachu can only use electric type attacks. It can use normal type attacks. It can use ground type attacks. It can use a whole set. It can't use all of them. What a type of attacks, what specific attacks a Pokemon can use is specific to that Pokemon. But say a Psyduck, water type, can also use psychic attacks, normal attacks. A Bulbasaur, half grass, half poison, can also use maybe, I don't know, fairy attacks. I'm just making that up. But you see what I mean. The type of attacks you can use as a Pokemon is not limited to the type that you are. So, in order to understand the interaction of types, you consider an attack on a defender. You look at the type of attack, and then you look at the type of Pokemon being attacked. And that is how you figure out your checks and balances, your interaction, your dynamic. Now, there are 8 what I call immunities, where this type of attack has no effect on this type of Pokemon. Now, when I say attack, we're really talking about damage-dealing attacks. There are attacks that do damage, attacks that don't. Attacks like Tackle. It's a physical attack that does damage. Attacks like Hyper Beam. It's a special attack that does damage, because it's not a physical action. It's like a Pokemon magic, Pokemon energy attack. And then you have things like Stun Spore, which is a grass type attack, but it doesn't do damage. It only paralyzes the opponent, but it doesn't hurt them. Non-damaging. So attacks like that, depending on the game, some of them follow the damage dealing pattern, some of them don't and are exempt from it, so I'm not going to worry about those. I'm just talking about the attacks that do damage against a defending Pokemon being attacked. So, they interact, and there's 8 immunities. The first 2 are easy because they are mirror images of each other. Normal on Ghost, and Ghost on Normal. When I say a type on a type, I mean a normal attack on a Ghost type. A normal attack, damage-dealing attack, remember, will have no effect whatsoever on a Ghost type Pokemon. The opposite is also true. A Ghost type attack has no effect on a normal type Pokemon. It's immunity both ways. Ghost attacks, normal attacks on each other's representative types has no effect. They're immune to each. That's 2 of the 8 immunities right there. There's another one involving Ghost, which takes a bit more of a modern turn. The interaction of Ghost and fighting. To which I say, you can't fight a ghost, but you can ghost a fight. So, you can't fight a ghost. Fighting attacks have no effect on ghost types, Pokemon. But you can ghost a fight. Ghosting, like, you stop texting someone, you disappear. You're arguing with someone and they just vanish. That's you're having a fight and you just ghosted it. You would certainly ghost a fight. What that means is ghost attacks do work on fighting Pokemon. So instead of being a 2-way immunity, like with Ghost and Normal, that's only 1 way. Ghost on fighting works. Fighting on Ghost does not. So Normal and Ghost cancel each other out, and you can't fight a Ghost, but you can ghost a fight. That's 3 of the 8 right there. The other 5, have a little bit of basis in real-world physics. Some don't. Electric on ground. Electric attacks have no effect on ground types. Understanding circuits, and when you ground an electric current, you're making it not live. You're making it completing the circuit. It's not a danger. It's not an open circuit. It's grounded, so it's safer. So you're negating the danger, somewhat, of that electricity. So ground types are immune to electric attacks. Electric attacks have no effect on ground types. Ground on flying. No matter what happens on the ground, if you're flying above it, you're completely unaffected. So ground attacks have no effect on flying types. Again, they're all mostly explainable by real-world physics, how the real world works. So that's 5 so far. Normal on ghost, ghost on normal. Fighting on ghost. Electric on ground. Ground on flying. 3 left. Poison on steel. Poison has no effect on steel. You could say this is like if you pour a chemical, little glass vial of chemical on a piece of sheet metal, it won't melt through it, it'll just run right off. That's kind of what I envision. You can spray poison at something, but if it's like a car, it'll just run down the car. The person inside is safe. The poison has no effect on steel types. That's 6. 7 is a bit more... 7 and 8 are a little more on the supernatural side. 7 is psychic on dark. And the last one is dragon on fairy. I mentioned when I was listing the original 18 that psychic and dragon types were the types to have in the beginning. Dark type was introduced to counter psychic. Fairy type was introduced to counter dragon. So naturally, the best counter is to be completely immune. And that's what they did. Dark types are completely immune to psychic attacks, and fairy types are completely immune to dragon attacks. So that is all 8 immunities. Normal on ghost, ghost on normal, fighting on ghost, electric on ground, ground on flying, poison on steel, psychic on dark, and dragon on fairy. I've been playing these Pokemon games long enough to have these memorized. So those are immunities. Now, those are the small fry. Now we're getting to the bulk of the topic, and that is strengths and weaknesses. Now, strengths and weaknesses are really the same thing, but seen from opposite perspectives. Example, fire and grass. Let's say you have a fire type attack used on a grass type Pokemon. Based on what you imagine that would look like in the real world, how do you think that would turn out? You set fire to the grass burns away, the fire wins. So you could say fire has a strength over grass. Looking at it the other perspective, you could say grass is weak to fire. But it's the same relationship, but seen from opposite sides. So, strengths and weaknesses, kind of 2 words for the same thing. There's a lot of those. A whole chart, which actually I am not looking at right now, because I'm doing all this from memory. It's a personal challenge. And then you have something different, something that personally I don't place really any focus on when playing the games, and that's the idea of resistances. But this will explain part of the ordering for my 18 types. Now, resistances means, well, to understand that, I'm going to introduce levels of damage. So let's say you have a grass type, and you attack it with a normal attack. Well, a normal attack is not especially strong or especially weak on a grass type. It just does regular damage. So that's what I'm going to call it. Normal attack on grass type does regular damage. If you use a fire attack, like we had in the previous example, oh look, a red and yellow star, appropriate for fire. If you use a fire attack on a grass type, it does extra damage because grass has a weakness to fire. The term we use is super effective. Fire does super effective damage on a grass type. What if you attacked a grass type with a grass attack? Well, the grass has a certain resistance to an attack of its own type. Not a complete immunity, so there's not no damage, but somewhat resisted, so it's not regular damage either. It's kind of halfway between regular and none. We call that reduced damage, resisted damage. The term for that is not very effective. So super effective is a strength, not very effective is a resistance. So grass resists grass. Personally, there's a lot more resistances relationships than there are strengths and weaknesses. It's a little too much to memorize. And honestly, for me, the way I play, strengths and weaknesses have a bit more use than understanding resistances. But we're going to touch a little bit on both later on. So here's how that relates to my ordering. There are 7 of the 18 types that do not resist themselves. In the example we just gave, grass types resist grass attacks being used on them. They resist an attack of their own type. Fire resists fire attacks. Water resists water attacks. Poison resists poison attacks. Psychic resists psychic attacks. There are 7 where if they are attacked with an attack of their own type, it's not resisted, it just does regular damage. Normal, which is the very first of our list. Fairy, which is the very last of our list. And the entire second chunk of 5. Ground, rock, fighting, flying, bug. Normal, the start, the end, and the second chunk of 5. If you attack with that type on a defending Pokemon of that same type, it will do regular damage. It will not be resisted. That is why the second chunk is as it is. The entire chunk, plus the beginning and the end, do not resist themselves. While we're talking about attacking your own type, there's 2 other types I should mention. Ghost and Dragon. And we're going to mention this later on, but I'm going to touch on it now. Ghost and Dragon are unique in that they are not just... They don't resist themselves. They don't do normal damage against themselves. They are actually weak to themselves. Meaning, if you attack a ghost with a ghost-type attack, it won't be not very effective. It won't be regular damage. It will be super effective. They are weak to their own type. Dragon, same thing. Dragons are weak to dragon attacks. Ghosts are weak to ghost attacks. And they are the only 2 types that are like that. Weak to themselves. kind of funny that it takes a dragon to take down a dragon, and a ghost to take down a ghost. Among other strategies, but I guess a bit poetic. So that is the sum of types. Now I'm going to show you, if I can get this to work, let me build this. There we go. That should be it. If I do this screen and then I do... Nope, not that I want. What if I do... Oh, maybe I can't do... What if this and then I do that instead? Oh, there we go. Okay. Now if I do that. No, still nothing? I was able to get this with the trolley problem. I was able to do a view of full screen. I guess that just doesn't work this time. Hang tight, a little longer, please. What if I bring it smaller? Nope, that still doesn't do squat. Does diddly squat. Well, this was a bust. Let me try now. What happens if I do this? Nothing. Back to this. Well, that was a bust. It worked last time. Oopsie doopsie. Well, you can search it up. Just look up Pokemon type matchup chart and you'll see a whole bunch of them. But they are essentially a visual representation of all the strengths, weaknesses, resistances, and immunities. And all 18 types. Basically everything I just described. So, that was the preamble, the predecessor to the Pokemon type discussion. Now I'm going to introduce something called a type triangle, and I'm only doing this really just for fun. But it's a good exercise to practice going through in your mind and memorizing the strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't do much for resistances, but strengths and weaknesses are my forte. A type triangle. It's essentially a Pokemon type equivalent of rock, paper, scissors. And the starter Pokemon, which we mentioned before, grass, fire, water, fall into this category. They are a type triangle. Here's what I mean. Grass on water. Grass attacks on water types are super effective. Water on fire. Water attacks on fire types, super effective. Fire on grass. As we know, fire attacks on grass types are super effective. And so it goes full circle. Grass on water, water on fire, fire on grass, grass on water, water on fire, fire on grass, and over and over and over. Those three make up a type triangle. And the starter Pokemon are always grass, fire, water. Always a type triangle. Now, what I believe the reason why the starters are always in this relationship is from the very first game, you, as the main character, got a chance to pick which of these three you wanted at the same time that your rival, you're the main antagonist of the game, or one of them, got to pick there first. And they, in a apparent show of gracious humility, allow you to pick first. So you have a choice of any one of the three. Because of the type triangle nature, no matter which one you pick, one of the others will be weak to you, and one of the others will be strong against you. So if you pick grass, you will have an advantage over the water type. You will have a weakness to the fire type. If you pick fire, you'll be strong on the grass, you'll be weak to the water. If you pick water, you'll be strong on the fire and weak to the grass. So no matter which Pokemon you choose, as soon as you pick and you commit to it, your rival runs in and picks the Pokemon that is strong against yours. So if you go ahead and pick, let's say, the first generation, Bulbasaur, grass type. Well, half grass, half poison, but mostly grass type. Charmander, fire. Squirtle, water. If you pick Bulbasaur, grass type, he picks Charmander, fire type. An inherent strength against you. You pick Charmander, he picks Squirtle. You pick Squirtle, he picks Bulbasaur. Just to be a jerk. So, they started with that triangle, and that pattern has essentially repeated. It actually got flipped on its head during some of the more recent games of Sword and Shield. Your rival actually picks the Pokemon that is weak to you. So if you pick the fire type, he picks grass. If you pick the grass type, he picks water. Why? Because the other one, the leftover, the one that you are weak to, goes to one of the final fights of the game. So assuming that you keep that Pokemon on your team the whole way through, you won't have to face it against your rival, but you will have to face off against it later on, in one of the big final battles of the game. Okay, so those are the first, the basic type triangle, grass, fire, water. Now, how many others are there? How many others could there be? Well, we can, let's try to go with 10. We'll try to go for 10 type triangles. There's a lot of there's 18 types, there's a lot. How do you know which ones to start with? Just shoot in the dark? Well, actually, we can do a process of elimination to eliminate some types from being in any type of triangle. Let's start with normal. Normal is easy, because normal type is unique in the fact that the attack of normal type has no strengths. It is the only one of all 18 types that does not have any strength advantage as an attack. You can use normal attack on any type, and it will never be super effective, ever. Well, a type triangle requires a type where the Pokemon has a weakness and the attack has a strength. Since a normal attack has no strengths, by definition, a normal type cannot be part of a type triangle. So now our list of 18 goes down to 17 possible candidates. Normal is out. Okay, one less we have to think about. We can do better than that. What about dragon? Well, we mentioned before that dragon is one of the two types that is weak to itself. Dragon and ghost are both weak to themselves. Dragon is strong on dragon. Unfortunately for dragon, that's its only strength. Dragon attacks are only super effective on other dragons. Well, in a triangle, we can't have it go to itself, unless you count a type triangle of dragon, 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 dragon. But we'll say the type triangle is 3 different types. So no dragon, dragon, dragon. So since dragon's only strength is on itself, it can't go in a circle. Dragon is removed from the list of candidates. So from 17 it goes down to 16. Okay, we're doing better. Let's do even better than that. Let's go to ghost. Now, know from dragon that ghost can't use itself as a triangle. Ghost has a total of 2 strengths, itself and psychic types. So, actually, let's go the other way. Ghost has 2 weaknesses. Ghost is weak to itself, and it's weak to dark types. Ghost is weak to dark types. So, if Ghost was to be part of a type triangle, it can't be Ghost on Ghost, because we know we can't do ourselves. So, it would have to be Dark on Ghost. So the first 2 points of the triangle are Dark on Ghost, Ghost on something, and that something on Dark. So of all of Ghost's strengths, which of them is strong on Dark? That would complete the triangle. Well, Ghost only has 2 strengths, itself, which we now know we can't use, and Psychic. So Dark on Ghost, super effective. Ghost on Psychic, super effective. Psychic on Dark. We know that that is an immunity. Psychic has no effect on Dark whatsoever. So by that logic, Ghost cannot be part of a type triangle. So just by looking at the types and their unique attributes, we've gotten the list of 18 down to 15. We've removed Normal, Dragon, and Ghost from the list of candidates. We have 15 left. We could do better than that. But before we do, we're at our half-hour mark. I am actually going to take a quick water break because I'm already out, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. See you in a bit. And we are back. All right, let's, oh wait, hold on, sun messed up. There we go, that's much better. Facing forward again. Okay, so we got rid of 3 types, Normal, Dragon, and Ghost. Let's do one better. Now, normal is unique in another way. We already know it's unique because it has 0 strengths. But it also has only 1 weakness. Well, there's only one other type of attack that is super effective against it. Everything else is not. And that would be fighting attacks. Fighting is good against normal. That makes sense. If you see around the street, you have a random bystander and a guy who knows karate. If they get into a fight, someone who knows martial arts, someone who doesn't, someone who can fight, someone who's normal, which one's going to win? Probably the fighter. So fighting, strong on normal. Makes sense. But fighting is normal's only weakness. Every other type has at least 2, with one exception. Electric. We mentioned before that electric attacks on ground types had no effect because ground is immune to electric. Well, the opposite relation goes a bit farther. Ground is the only weakness of electric types. So, if electric was going to be part of a type triangle, it would have to be preceded by ground and nothing else. So if we do ground on electric, electric on something, something on ground, as many times as there are strengths of electric, we have exhausted all type triangles in which electric is a part. Well, luckily for us, electric only has 2 strengths, water and flying. Electric on water, you zap someone who's wet, zap someone who's dry, the one who's wet probably gets easier zapped. And flying, you're flying up near thunderclouds, much easier to get zapped by lightning. So, electric on water, electric on flying. So our triangle would either be ground, electric, water, or ground, electric, flying. So which of the 2, if any, of water and flying is strong against ground? And whichever is, completes the triangle. Well, flying on ground, we know that ground has no effect on flying. But the opposite is not that special. Flying is not super effective on ground. It's just regular damage. It's different from the electric-ground relationship, where one is immune, the other is super effective. With flying and ground, one is immune, the other is just regular. So flying is not super effective on ground, that's not part of the triangle. Water, however, is. So water on ground is super effective. So that looks like it completes a triangle. Ground on electric, electric on water, water on ground. That is the complete triangle. That is the only one that has electric in it. So now we have eliminated 4 of the 18 types. We have 14 left and 2 triangles made so far. The original, grass, fire, water, and this one, ground, electric, water. We can do 8 more triangles, and we only have 14 types left to work with. Well, now it's just a matter of thinking of a type, and when at this point I get to the point where I can say a type, and I can almost immediately visualize in my mind what its strengths are. So let's start with the basic one, grass, fire, water, and let's change out a couple types here and there. Let's start with the first one, grass. Grass has 3 strengths. Fire, ground, no, not fire, water, ground, rock. Water, ground, rock. Grass is strongest, water, ground, rock. So grass, water, fire, grass, ground, fire, grass, rock, fire would be potential candidates. Well, we know water is strong on fire. We already have that triangle. What about rock on fire? What about ground on fire? Well, as it turns out, they're both strong on fire. So it works out. We just got 2 additional triangles right there. rock on fire, and ground on fire both are super effective. So our total triangles just doubled. We have ground, electric, water, grass, water, fire, grass, rock, fire, grass, ground, fire. That's 4. We can do 6 more. And now it's just a point of thinking of different types and coming up with different triangles. So I'm just going to list off the ones that I've already made to finish out the list. I'm not going to explain all of them, but coming up with these forces you to really remember what the type interactions are from a strengths and weaknesses perspective. And it kind of just rejuvenates and rejogs your memory of what these interactions are. So the other 6 I have are ground, rock, ice, ground on rock, which is weird. Like ground is strong against rock. You'd almost think they're kind of the same thing, but it is what it is. Ground on rock, rock on ice, ice on ground. I said I wasn't going to explain them, but this one seems pretty self-explanatory. Ice on ground, you can use ice to cover the ground, but you can break apart ice with a rock. So rock on ice, ice on ground, ground on rock. The others are a little less cut and dry. Fairy on fighting, fighting on steel, steel on fairy. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 triangle, 4 left. 7th is poison on grass, grass on ground, ground on poison. 8th is dark on psychic, psychic on fighting, fighting on dark. 9th is bug on grass, because bugs eat grass, grass on rock, and rock on bug. Squish a bug with a rock. And then finally, steel on ice, ice on ground, ground on steel. An earthquake can bring down a steel building, ground on steel. Little things here and there. So those are type triangles. And we just made 10. There's probably plenty more, but there's quite a bit. Now, let's talk about some attributes of all the types. And we have to talk about it from 2 different perspectives. The type of Pokemon or the type of attack. So in terms of Pokemon types, there are 2 types that have the most number of weaknesses for Pokemon, and that's grass and rock. Grass types, 5 out of the 18 remaining types are, as attacks, super effective on grass types. Same thing with rock. So if you get a grass type Pokemon, it has the most weaknesses out of all the types. Same with rock. So you would probably advise not to get one of those, otherwise you might be in for a difficult time. On the opposite side, like we just said, the types with the least amount of weaknesses are electric and normal with 1 weakness each. Fighting for normal and ground for electric. So if anything, you want to start off with a good electric or normal type for defensive purposes. Now here's where we go to resistances, which I'm not too familiar with in terms of memorization, but it's worth a mention. On the bottom low end, we have normal, which is the only type with 0 resistances. Normal type does not resist anything. Anything can beat up normals. Except ghosts. Ghosts have no effect on normal. Other than that, everything else is regular damage, or in the case of fighting, super effective. But it doesn't resist anything. So that's kind of the pros and cons of starting with a normal type. The pro, it only has 1 weakness. The con, it has 0 resistances. On the contrary, the one type with the most resistances is steel, with 10 resistances. So you can attack a steel type with 10 of the 18 types of attacks, and it will reduce the damage and be not very effective for 10 of them. Let's talk about attacks. attack type. Once again, we bring up normal. Normal attacks are not super effective against anything, so normal attacks have 0 strengths. So now we have 1 pro and 2 cons for a normal type. The pro, 1 weakness, only 1 weakness. The con, no resistances, another con, no strengths. So normal, probably not looking good for our single most versatile Pokemon combat. What about the opposite side? There are 2 types that have 5 strengths each. That's fighting and ground. A fighting attack is strong on 5 of the 18 different types of defending Pokemon. Same with ground. 5, and that's the most strengths that any one type of attack can have. All the others are between 1 and 4. So, to get our most versatile one-man show, we want a Pokemon that has either the least amount of weaknesses or the most amount of resistances to have the best defense, and the most strengths across their attacks to have the most offense. Now, the way the games work, Pokemon are only allowed a maximum of 4 different attacks at one time. To learn a new one, you have to forget an old one. So, for our starting Swiss Army knife Pokemon, we want 1 Pokemon that is a type with the least amount of weaknesses or most resistances. And across all 4 types are strong against the most of the 18 defenders. So, if I wanted to go resistances, I'd go with a steel type. I'm going to leave that to another independent deep dive. What I'm going to go with is the least amount of weaknesses. Now, my 2 options for only 1 weakness are normal and electric. However, we've already said that normal has more than its fair share of setbacks. So we're going to go with electric. Maybe they were onto something when they started Pikachu as a starter. But electric type has only 1 weakness. Perfect, we're good. Now, what are its attacks? What 4 attacks can we use to make sure we cover the most bases? Well, there's something called STAB. STAB is an acronym. It stands for Same Type Attack Boost. I call it type boosting. Basically, if you use an attack where the type of attack matches the type of Pokemon using it, it gets a little power boost. So if an electric type uses an electric attack, it'd be stronger than if that same electric type used a normal attack or a fighting attack. If the type of the attack and the type of the Pokemon using it are the same, that attack is a little extra boost. I call it type boosting. The official acronym is STAB, or Same Type Attack Boost. I call it type boosting. So, since we're starting with electric type, we want to take advantage of that type boost. So first of our 4 attacks will be electric type. So what strengths does that give us right away? Electric has 2 strengths, water and flying. So that's 2 of the 18 covered with a single attack. Well, we mentioned earlier that fighting attacks and ground attacks cover 5 strengths each. So between them, they cover the most ground. So let's see if we can get 1 of each. Well, in order to figure out which one Pokemon can have both, we have to start picking specific Pokemon to use as trials, experiments. Now, for my trial, I'm going to actually choose Raichu, which is the evolved form of Pikachu, and not the Alolan form, the Cantonian form, the regular form. So, you look up online what are all of Raichu's possible learnable attacks. Are there any fighting attacks it can learn? Are there any ground attacks it can learn? Answer happens to be yes for both of them. A fighting attack it can learn are Brick Break, for example. A ground attack it can learn is Dig. So, what strengths does fighting give us? Well, fighting, we know, is strong against normal, at least. It's also strong against rock, ice, dark, and steel. So those are fighting's 5 strengths: normal, rock, ice, dark, and steel. What about ground? Ground is strong against, we know, electric. What are the other 4? Fire, poison, steel, and rock. Well, hold on, we already had steel and rock from the fighting. Well, that's okay. So fighting and ground each cover 5 strengths, but they overlap on 2. So between them, they have a total of 8 strengths. Add those 8 strengths between fighting and ground to the 2 that we already had from electric, which are not repeated. And now, with those 3 attacks, electric, let's just say Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt, electric, Brick Break, fighting, and Dig, ground. Those 3 attacks, we have a strength over 10 of the 18 different types of defending Pokemon. So now, we have to figure out what should the last attack be to get the most mileage out of it. Well, the first thing I did is figure out what kinds of attacks Raichu has left to learn. Well, Raichu can learn a grass attack, a water attack, a fairy attack, a dark attack, and a steel attack. So 5 different choices. So of those 5 different types of attacks, which of them covers the most new ground? We don't care if it has strengths against types that we already have strengths against with electric, fighting, and ground. It'd be redundant. We want new strengths added. Well, what I did is I listed out all the types that were not covered so far. The 10 types that we did cover, great. The 8 left, grass, ground, fighting, bug, ghost, psychic, dragon, and fairy. And for each of these 8 types, I just listed out what each one was weak against. And then I tallied them up. So for instance, grass is weak to fire. Bug is weak to fire. So if we had a single fire attack, we'd have a strength against grass and bug, 2 new ones. That'd be great. Dragon is weak against ice. Ground is weak against ice. Grass is weak against ice. So there we get, if we have an ice type attack, we'd have a strength against grass, ground, and dragon. That'd cover 3 of the remaining 8 types. That'd be great. Turns out, flying and ice would cover the most ground, give us 3 new attacks, new strengths. Raichu can't learn any flying or ice attacks. What about the types that would give us 2 extra advantages? Fire, bug, poison, fairy, ghost, or dark. Of those 6 ideal, Raichu can learn 2 of them. It can learn a fairy attack and a dark attack. Fairy attack would be Play Rough or Draining Kiss. Dark would be Thief, Fling, or Brutal Swing. So, looks like we have a match. If we give that 4th attack of Raichu to either a dark attack or a fairy attack, whichever one we pick, we are adding 2 new strengths to our roster of 10, bringing the grand total up to 12 strengths. So I'm going to say it doesn't matter whether you have electric, fighting, ground, and fairy, or electric, fighting, ground, and dark. Your total strength for that Raichu is still 12 out of 18, which is 2/3 of all types covered, including the type boosting with electric. using a Pokemon with only one weakness. Seems like a pretty good deal. So that's why I argue that having a Raichu is one of the most versatile Pokemon you can have. Its 4 specifically chosen attack types cover 2/3 of all single-type opponents, while only having one weakness of its own. I'd say that's pretty good. Like I said, that was using the strategy of finding a Pokemon with the least amount of weaknesses. You could flip it and find one with the most amount of resistances using Steel and this same kind of process of elimination strategy. But I'll let someone else do that one. I might do that later on my own for a new game. Okay, that is it. That is the Pokemon spiel. So all I have left is really just some closing comments. We're coming on almost 2 hours, so I guess this wasn't really as long as I thought. So, closing comments. First, I'm going to mention a couple upcoming projects I have, and I've been working on quite a few. As I said before, I'm probably not really going to be, well, I'll talk about it later. I have a comic strip that I've hand-drawn and colored digitally, and it will be fully voice-acted by volunteers and have little background music that I've composed as well. It should be a little comic project, just to see, try something new, try hand drawing, and see how I like it. It was okay. Might do another one, but at least I know what it's like. I have a new Rizalian Cinema experimental animation. And by experimental, I mean its purpose is to explore using different features of Blender, either animating features, designing features, exporting features, just enhancing my skill set. And it is also going to have the voice talents of various people with some background music, and should have a couple interesting things about it. I'm excited to give it a try. And then finally, later on down the road, we have another parody song from Rizalian Cinema. The last one we did was Baby It's Nice Outside, the Among Us parody. This next one will be a similar parody where it's one song and then the lyrics have nothing to do with the theme of the song, but, well, a little bit to do with the theme of the song. But it's different topic, different concept. And we'll also have music composed by me and the singing talents of 8 more singers. Some may be repeats, some may be new. That'll be further on down the road, and that will probably be one of the last parody songs I will do. For the purpose of copyright difficulties, I can't do a parody song of a song that is not in public domain. Because calling it a parody may be not the right word. It may be called satire. And satire is not covered under fair use and Creative Commons. Parody is. Satire is not. So that'll be difficulty. If I need to, I would have to buy licenses, and I don't have the funds for that just yet, nor the real investment interest. So that'll be the last parody song for a while. The last one where I will be recruiting other people to do singing for a project for me. Although, I am still looking for 1 or 2 new potential singers. So if I haven't reached out to you, and you're interested in lending your singing voice, more than welcome to contact me, and I will gladly listen to your voice and see if it would be a fit for the project. But I am still looking for 1 or 2 new singers to fill in the blanks. And finally, there will be a new, much later, after all that, Brazilian cinema music video. Similar to the very first one, where I covered an existing song cover with Iron Mouse. This one will be a fully produced song that I've already gotten copyright permission to use, and I will be animating that with the Brazilian cinema. And that, honestly, is what I want to go towards more. I want to take popular songs that I love, and I want to pay tribute to them by animating it. But I want to do it the right way, by getting all the legal permissions for each. So I've already started with this first one, which is going to happen way near at least the end of the year, maybe next year. But this is the start of what I want to really bring the Brazilians into. Eventually, I'm going to let the name of Poison Tongue fade away, and only Brazilian cinema will shine through. And they will create visually splendid and fantastic performances to songs that we all know and love. That's really where I want to go with this. So, most of my content will be transitioning to mostly Brazilian-themed things. And Poison Tongue specific stuff, like these streams, or like the trolley problem example, or things on like my website with like the linguistics or the riddles, they'll start to slowly fade away. I won't be advertising them. They're kind of fading in. They were fun to make at the beginning, but I think I've had my run. I've had my fill with that side of things. Composing our last 2 songs, the music that goes with this background, and the music that goes with another background I've made, probably gonna not pursue those anymore. Not really feeling motivated or energized to do that again. In terms of streaming on my VR chat world, I still visit there time to time, but streaming the whole setup with the Oculus and my laptop and the headphones and all that stuff, it's very complicated. Not complicated, very difficult. Plus, I don't have access to my full range of computer capabilities, so I can't just flip between different scenes like this easily, or provide any background images or anything like that. So it limits what I can actually talk about and present. In terms of uploading new VR chat worlds, I'm exploring using Blender more to create the world and then simply uploading it to Unity for the VR chat. I have a couple ideas I may or may not explore, but I'm searching what possibilities are out there. And that is pretty much an update on everything. This has been the 1-year anniversary since my first ever stream. It's been a very interesting, long, and roller coaster year. I've met several friends during this time, several of which have become rather close, near and dear, lots of fun with. But motivation to be a content creator ebbs and flows, and I understand sometimes I don't feel like it, sometimes I do. But honestly, it's been a ride, but I think the majority of my creative streak in terms of this has passed. So I'll just be making stuff here and there whenever I feel like it. But the majority of stream Poison Tongue and all that stuff is pretty much gone. But who knows? Something could happen. I get a whole bunch of motivation, a whole bunch of people that want to collaborate with me, and maybe we'll jump into something else. Maybe we'll resurrect it. But until then, I will consider this the final Poison Tongue live stream. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for being on this very peculiar journey. And if there is a next time, or if there is not, for the rest of your life, I encourage you, and I say one